Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope we're live. I'm not sure. Are we live? Come on. All right, I'll just pretend we're live. So, welcome to Proko Live. I'm going to be doing a anatomy tracing. This is going to be one of the assignments from the hamstring lesson that we published last week. Actually, I'll show you right now. It's on my screen. There. Woo! All right. Sorry. Well, yeah, by the way, warning, there will be butts. But it's covered. Not really. What?
We're live.
We are, I know. Okay. That's the drawing, and I'm going to be pretty much drawing every single muscle on there for you guys. And if you have any questions while I'm drawing it, go for it. And I'm talking about like questions specifically for that drawing. But right now, before I start, I'm going to just answer some of the questions that you guys asked on Instagram, Twitter, email yesterday when I announced the live stream. So, John?
Yeah, so the first question comes to us from WillyMano0 from Instagram. What happens to the hamstring when the leg bends with the calf and all that?
Oh, okay. What happens to the hamstring when the knee bends and the leg bends?
When the leg bends, yeah.
Well, okay. So that's going to be covered in premium part 2. That's a premium episode, but I'll cover it a little bit right now. Basically, the hamstrings are 2 layers. So it's 2 sides, and each side has a deep layer and a surface layer. They're like 4 cylindrical groups or 4 cylindrical muscles. What happens when you bend your knee is the ones on the outside, on the surface, they kind of slide up a little bit, especially the semitendinosus, because it's got such a long tendon at the bottom that the belly contracts and it goes up quite a bit. So you're getting a little bit of that sliding up and down, and so the amount of the semimembranosus underneath shows through a little bit more. And then, of course, they flex, and so they kind of pop out. Yeah, but there's a lot more that happens, and I'm going to cover all that in detail in the premium episode. Generally, all those kind of like more detailed things about what happens to the muscles when they move, various poses and stuff. That's the kind of stuff I cover in the premium. Any other questions?
Yes. Stefano Di Lorenzo asks, what books do you recommend for simplifying the anatomical masses?
Good books for simple forms of anatomy. Bridgman, obviously, but to go into Bridgman, you have to know a little bit of anatomy already, just because he stylizes so much. But he does stylize towards basic forms, so that's a good one for that. Hampton has a good book on anatomy. He definitely goes for simple forms. Charles Barg, he's good as well for that. I'd say those are the 3 for simple forms. As far as like just maybe like designing your shapes, not necessarily forms, but shapes, Goldfinger has a lot of little side notes about little design elements to look for each muscle. And I tend to like looking at those as well.
Cool. And then to kind of jump off that question, Aquinas punched Batman.
What?
So yeah.
Okay.
They want to know, would you recommend the books of Byrne Hogarth?
Hogarth's good. I like him. He does tend to be a little over curvy, just curves everywhere, and I don't like that. But there is a lot of stuff in there that I do kind of borrow from him as well. So I would say, yeah, it's just that design-wise, there's a lot of things that I don't like, and I wouldn't want to study him like really intensely because I might get some of that, some of that design might rub off on me, and I don't want that. But I mean, yeah, he's good. He's one of the most used anatomy teachers as far as books. So, yeah, I'd recommend
Cool.
that. Very good gesture. It's just like he takes gesture a little too far sometimes.
Christian Knees wants to know, hey Stan, when do you think anatomy becomes important when drawing?
When does anatomy become important? Well, if you're an ultimate beginner, like you're just starting out, it's not important yet. I would ignore anatomy because it's really it's too complex to be thinking about when you're just learning how to draw simple shapes and stuff. It becomes important once you get a good grasp on basic form and gesture, and once you get the hang of those, then anatomy becomes really key, because that's what's going to take your drawings to the next level, is understanding how to design gesture and your forms accurately to what's actually happening in the body. Because if you're basing your designs off of just like, you know, random shapes that look cool, sometimes that might look weird to people who know what's going on, or even to just regular people who have seen the body. Sometimes pushing something into a way that looks cool could look inaccurate to just a regular person as well. And you're going to get called out for it. There's a few comic artists I'm thinking of that you guys probably know that are mocked because they push things too far. But yeah, I think once you get a grasp on basic form and gesture, then it becomes important to get your anatomy on.
Cool.
Yeah.
And let's see, the last one,
Okay.
I think,
Okay.
is which muscles are the most important ones to study? The different shapes of the muscles when they contract or are relaxed, and how to use planes to direct the movement of the leg. And that
Wait, how many that's 3 questions?
That's like 3 questions.
Okay,
Kind
the
of all
first
in
one, what are the most important muscles to study?
Yeah.
Come on, man. The muscles of the toes. I mean, like, they're all important. Like, it depends on what you're drawing, but the whole body is important. All the muscles, all the surface muscles, like the deep ones that we don't see, those are important for doctors and surgeons, but for artists they're not. But sometimes they are, if they do make a dent on the surface, like the pectoralis minor. It's underneath the pectoralis major, but sometimes it does push through, and you can kind of see a hint of it on the surface, even though it's completely deep underneath the major. Even that is kind of important to understand what you're designing. They're all important, man. What's the second part of that?
It's the different shapes of the muscles and when they contract or are relaxed.
Oh, jeez.
It's kind of an incomplete
That's a huge question. That's pretty much my course. What are the shapes of the muscles? That's what I teach in my course. That's like 20 hours long already. So, I'll show you the shapes of the muscles of the back of the leg in this demo, like right now. So I'll give you at least that.
Well, yeah, should we?
And is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and start the demo, you guys, and I'll try to take some more questions while I'm drawing. But hopefully, if you guys have questions related to this demo, to this drawing, try to ask those, and then the ones that are unrelated to the drawing, I'll do another little Q&A at the very end. So here's the pose I'm doing. The assignment was to do a tracing, and I don't have my other tracing here that I did. But anyway, if you don't know what anatomy tracing is, I do have a video dedicated specifically to that. Ah, jeez. Oh, there you go. Okay. Cool. So you could look that up. I'm going to start at the top. I like to always look for bony landmarks. And a good one on the hip is this greater trochanter right there. Let me change the setting here. Okay. Greater trochanter, it's part of the femur. It's on the surface. It's great because the glutes kind of go around it. Another bony landmark, well, I mean the sacrum kind of covered up a little bit, but it's like right there-ish. Iliac crest, right there. The reason I'm looking for this is because this is where the muscles are going to attach. And so it's good to know that, have that established before I start putting the muscles. Down here, you don't really see much. I mean, there is the knee. This whole shape right here is, that's patella. Well, actually, this part at the top is the tendon from the quads. The patella is actually just down there, but I'm not really doing any muscles that are going to connect to that. So I think that's enough for the bony landmarks. To get started, one thing I don't want you guys to do when you're doing these tracings is just look for the stuff that you see on the surface, like the major forms. Like, for example, the glutes. I'm seeing like this shape right here, right? I'm sure you guys see that. But that's not what the muscle actually looks like underneath. And what I want you to do is actually think of what the muscle's doing underneath the surface. Don't just trace edges that you're seeing, that, like this right here, that's just a fold in the skin. Like, that's not important to really to think about right now when you're doing a tracing. You think about what you're doing. Don't just trace. Don't literally trace what you're seeing, but dissect. That's the word I was looking for. Is dissect the body, take the skin off, even sometimes take some fat away, because we're really just studying the muscles right now. So for example, when I'm talking about the fat, the glutes have, this whole area right here on the glutes, that's fat on him, and he's very lean, so he's got much less fat on his glutes than most. But even him, you can see like right here, that's not muscle hanging there. That's just a little bit of fat. Some other people, you wouldn't be able to see any muscle indication at all. So what I'm talking about is look for clues for where the muscles are. I'm seeing a little indication right around here for a separation between the gluteus medius and the gluteus maximus. And then I know that right in here is the edge of the gluteus medius. So there you go. I've found the gluteus medius underneath. I'm not necessarily seeing that exact shape, but I see clues to it. And then gluteus maximus, I know, if you guys watched my gluteus maximus lesson, I know that it'll go right through here. So it'll start from the sacrum, cut across here, because the rest of this is fat. And it'll run through here. You can actually kind of see that little bump right there. That's a little bit of the gluteus maximus and a little bit of fat as well, kind of pushing through. And then it attaches right in here to the IT band, but its form is no longer visible. It gets really thin through this area, and you start seeing the vastus lateralis really popping through this whole shape right here, that football shape. So let's start defining that one. So I know that it attaches at the top, right here on the front of the greater trochanter, a little bit at the bottom here, and then there's the edge. You could very clearly see the edge on this side, and then I'm going to jump over here at the top. There's two things that I really want to talk about for the vastus lateralis. One at the top, one at the bottom. They can both be really confusing if you don't understand what's going on here. So let's identify the easy ones. So the sides, that's easy. We could really clearly see those shapes. Okay. Now, at the bottom, this little tail that we're seeing, that is not the vastus lateralis. That is the tail of, like a tendon of the IT band covering the vastus lateralis. And if we continue that rhythm, it'll attach to the gluteus maximus right through here. And we continue the rhythm up here, it'll attach to the tensor fasciae lata up here, which I haven't defined yet. And John, if there are any questions while I'm talking, go ahead and, related to the demo. Are there any yet? No.
We've got one that's who's the model.
Who's the model? This is Chris. We have not published his photo set yet, but we will. We're working on it. So yeah, it's Chris. It's one of our models. Okay, so the bottom, basically, IT band. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. If not, watch the quadricep lesson. That was pretty recent. At the top here, we have 2 bumps. This kind of confused me in the beginning when I was looking at this photo. I was like, why the heck are there 2 bumps? What I think is happening, because usually you would just see one over here for the tensor fasciae lata, but what I think is happening is you have the tensor fasciae lata right here, and then once it reaches the vastus lateralis, it gets pushed out a little bit right here over the vastus lateralis. So the edge of the vastus lateralis kind of pushes it a little bit, and it gets that second little bump. That's what I think is happening. There is no other explanation I can think of for that. And so this would be the bottom of the tensor fasciae lata connecting to the IT band. And so the IT band pretty much just kind of flows down like this, so any kind of vertical indentation that you see in this area is from the IT band, and the any kind of diagonal striation you're going to see like this is going to be from the vastus lateralis. So there's the direction of the muscle fibers. Okay. Hope this makes sense to you guys.
Someone's asking, could you use a different pen color? It's difficult to see the lighter strokes.
The lighter strokes.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem too bad on the stream, but...
What if I zoom in a little bit? Oops. Yeah, I guess I could. Let me go quickly. I'll just do a layer style here. Color overlay. I'll just do a bright red.
And then while you're doing that, another person asked, if the forms of the anatomy are hidden or very subtle, is it better from a design standpoint to try to impose anatomy knowledge or rely on mannequinization and simple forms?
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you ask that again?
Sure. If the forms of the anatomy are hidden or very subtle, is it better to, from a design standpoint, to try to impose anatomy knowledge or rely on mannequinization and simple forms?
It depends on what you're doing. Like if you're doing this tracing, it's better. I think it's better to dissect and try to figure out what's going on underneath the surface. That's the point of these. Is you're studying what's underneath. But if you're doing drawing, like you're sketching, I would say start with the simple forms, and then you could layer on top of that and then try to add more smaller forms inside of that. But it really depends on the muscle. It depends on the part of the body that you're designing. It depends on the pose. But I would lean towards simple forms when you're doing like quick sketch or lay-ins. Just when you're starting to draw the pose, lean on simple forms and gesture, not on detailed anatomy stuff. But for this specifically, this exercise is not for simple forms. It's for a detailed anatomy study. That's the point of this. Good question. Thank you.
Sure.
Not to you.
No.
The guy that asked the question. Okay. And I'm also thinking about like the direction of the muscle flow. Like, the glutes are going like this. Yeah, something like that. Does this color help, by the way? I don't know. Maybe not, huh?
Like a blue work better?
Oops.
Sacrilege.
What the heck? What is going on? Uh-oh. Something's frozen. Oh no, Photoshop is frozen, you guys. Of course, this happens during a live stream. Nope. Got updated. Oh, it's just really laggy.
Oh, jeez. Do you have a lot of...
No, I don't have anything else open. Ah, Jesus. Let me try to save it. Maybe we could ask a question while this is loading. Ah, my gosh.
Javier says, happens to me a lot, lol. So he has
Yeah.
problems as well.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is I have a really good computer. This should not happen. Like, this is a beast. 64 gigs of RAM. Like, two graphics cards. And just yeah. This should not happen.
I do have a question.
Yeah, I'll take a screenshot.
If you like to draw cartoony, how do you add anatomy into that?
If you like to draw cartoony.
Yeah.
Look up The Art of Tarzan, the Disney animation. That's very cartoony, very stylized. But if you look up if you Google Tarzan and anatomy drawing or something, you'll see the little tracings that they do over the cartoony version of the drawing, and it's very accurate anatomy. Like, all the simple shapes that they design are still based on accurate anatomy. So that's like my ideal cartoony style that's still accurate. Jesus Christ, come on. It's still loading. I think I just have to close it. This sucks. This actually has never happened. Like, this specific problem. It's probably because I'm streaming. There's something going on with the... Oh, yeah, not responding. That's definitely not gonna... That's not gonna go away. Well... I'm gonna take a screenshot. Hopefully that screenshot worked, and I'll just continue over it. Sorry, guys. Boom, close. By the way, look at that desktop. Oh boy. Who wants that wallpaper, huh? Nobody except me. Yeah, I guess Tarzan's the one that I always think of. Oh, hey, I saved it before?
It might have recovered it.
Oh, is this a recovered file?
Yeah.
It is a recovered file. Oh, well, there you go. Cool. I only lost the fibers I drew on the glutes. Cool. Yay, Photoshop. Recovered, whatever. Continuing. Jeez. By the way, did anyone say if this this color works better?
I don't think I saw anyone really reply.
Okay. Well, hopefully it works better. How many people are watching?
Almost 700.
700?
Almost 700.
Oh, jeez. Whoa.
It's at 669 right now.
Well,
I round up.
I'm nervous now. Okay, guys. Well, I got to put on a show. Okay. Gluteus medius. Pretty sure you could figure it out. That's the flow. Tensor fasciae lata kind of wraps around like that. Now let's go into these hamstrings. Okay, some clues that I look for. I like to start with the tendons. That's where it's most obvious. Even in a pose like this, where the only thing I'm really seeing is like a cylindrical form like that across the whole hamstring area. You're still seeing the tendons popping out. Like, look at this very, very clear shape right here. You guys see that tendon? And then in here on this side, if I continue this calf muscle up, that pretty much tells me where this tendinous bundle goes in, like that. And then this whole area is covered by some fat and some arteries and stuff, and so you don't always see the end of the calf muscles going in because this whole little pillowy area covers it. But let's try to see what we would see underneath that fat pad area if it wasn't there. You can kind of see the bottom of that right there. That's a little fat pad covering up the hamstrings. Okay. But hamstrings. Okay. So I know that the hamstrings are made of two sides, and they pretty much get cut kind of in the middle. I would say right there. That's the center line, and then this is the tendon right around here, and then right there the bicep femoris attaches. Oh, and actually, this tendon actually is not as thick as I indicated it. If you look at some diagrams of a side view of a leg, the front area of it is actually muscle. So this whole area in here, I don't know if you guys could see what I'm doing, but that's all muscle, and then the tendon is a really thin piece right here. And then sometimes you'll see an indication right there where the short head and the long head split. Okay. On this side, you got the semitendinosus and the semimembranosus. Again, you have a thin tendon that attaches to this whole bundle, and it'll be a lot clearer when I do this side, because on this leg we're seeing this entire bundle right there. That entire bundle is all tendon. It attaches to the gracilis and the sartorius over here, and they all kind of group together into this tendinous bump that's obviously very prominent. This entire thing right here is that tendinous bump. But we're seeing just a little bit of it here. Okay. An important thing to remember about the semitendinosus and the semimembranosus is that the one on top is pretty high up, and it just splits the one on bottom in half. So you can see here, there's two bumps. One bump, two bumps. That tells me that there's something happening there, because a single muscle belly won't usually just be split into two bumps like that. There's usually something to explain it. And what I think is happening is this top bump is the semitendinosus. Attaching to its tendon right here. And this bottom bump is the semimembranosus. And then you would also see it in here if it wasn't softened by that fatty pad. So do you guys see what I hope this makes sense. Basically, this whole side is like a large muscle on bottom and then a thinner muscle on top with a tendon. And this piece right here is this. And this whole side right here is this whole thing right here. If you watched the hamstring lesson, this definitely would make much more sense. And the fibers go kind of like that, and then boom, boom, and then underneath, and they keep going like that. And these fibers just go up. Same thing with these. Okay, so that's the hamstrings on this side. I could do a little bit of the calves. Just because it's so prominent on him. Okay, so right here, clear indication of the gastrocnemius. Clear center of it. I have not done the lesson on calves yet, so I know that this might be very foreign to some people. But basically you have these two heads, and as they dive in to the leg, into the knee, they kind of split off like this. And you see that little split right there? That's from a tendinous area right here. This is a tendon. And the fibers go like this. And there's a tendon on the other side, like over there. And they go like that. There. And then you got the soleus muscle right there. Underneath this tendon, Achilles. Oh geez, and then you got all these muscles of the tibia, or yeah, the tibia muscle, the tibial bone. So the perennials, you got a bump right there, and then this shoots a tendon down and breaks this whole muscle into two sides. And then there's that tendon that keeps going. And then one more. I'm just gonna rush past these just because we haven't covered it yet, but basically that's what's happening there. Okay, other side. Should I take a quick break while I answer a question maybe?
Sure, yeah. I've got a few more questions. One is, do you recommend lazy Nezumi, and how useful is it for you?
Absolutely, I'm using it right now.
Yeah.
Did people notice it at the bottom there?
Maybe.
Probably they probably saw it right here.
Icon.
Yeah, I'm using it. The only thing I'm doing now is here, I'll bring in the little window. I don't know if people could see this. It's so small. I'm doing a subtle smoothing to it. And it's set to 16, so it's right here pretty low. What it does is it just kind of smoothens my curves a little bit. It just corrects it. I could show you guys. So if I set it pretty high, watch what happens. If I like wiggle my hand around, I guess you couldn't see what I was doing. I was going like this. I was doing like a zigzag, and it softened that zigzag quite a bit. And so if I'm doing like a shaky line, look at that. I was shaking my hand, and that was a pretty smooth curve. And so I could do like really, really nice curves with that. Look how nice those are. I don't know if that makes sense. You kind of have to feel it. But yeah, it just smoothens out my lines. I do recommend it. I like it.
And then Aspen Blue wants to know, how long did it take you to get a full understanding of anatomy?
I haven't I haven't gotten a full understanding of anatomy, so I don't know how long.
Process.
Yeah, I learned something about the muscles as I'm teaching them to you guys. I mean, the amount of research I have to do in order to make these lessons is more than I've ever done in my life when I was a student. And so I'm learning new things as I do this intense research. So, yeah, I'm still learning it. But, I mean, I've been doing it probably for 15 years. And I got a pretty decent understanding of it, you know, after 3-4 years of it. I was like decent, but I still had a lot of really areas that I was really unsure about, and I was just drawing them based on my life drawing experience, like what I saw from a model, but not having a true understanding of what's happening underneath. That true understanding really came from doing my own research, analyzing photos while looking at diagrams and really trying to understand what's going on. This tracing that I'm doing right now, this is the kind of thing that if you're looking at a bump and you don't know what's happening, go do research. Figure out what that is. Don't just say, oh, I don't know, it's a bump, and just trace it. That's the kind of exercise, that's the kind of thinking that will get you to truly understand, is to identify the weak points where you're missing the knowledge, and then fill those gaps. And then keep repeating that. Never stop. If you really want to be a figurative artist, drawing the figure all the time, you kind of have to do that. Okay, if there's any more questions, go ahead. I will continue with this side. Okay, so I'm seeing, you guys remember in the hamstring lesson, I talked about this shape and how it's diagonal on the leg. So it's kind of a combo of the adductor area, right, and the hamstring area. And it makes that shape when you can't see all the separations between the muscles, because they're not really active in this pose. He's just standing there. I mean, he's on his toes, actually, which is flexing the quads quite a bit. It's flexing the calves quite a bit. You know, that's why the Vastus lateralis is so pronounced in there. It's because he's flexing it. But the hamstrings are not very active in this. And even if he was flexing his hamstrings, you wouldn't be able to see them very much unless he was also bending down. The hamstrings are most visible when they're stretched. And in order to do that, you have to flex the pelvis. Okay. So you're seeing the adductors and the hamstrings merge into this one form. That's the shape I would draw if I was just doing a quick sketch. But I'm not just doing a quick sketch. So let's undo. And let's really get in there and see what's going on. I'm going to start with the ones that I think are most obvious to me. Okay, look at in here, you guys. Sorry for zooming in here. Let's move up. Boop. There. Now I'm more comfortable. Look right here. Do you guys see this little overlap? And then the one right here as well. That's the sartorius muscle wrapping around from the front and attaching to this whole bundle of tendons down here. So that I'm pretty confident with. Oops. And then right on this side it kind of merges in, so I'm not going to outline it. This is actually a bone. That's the femur, the condyles popping out. And the sartorius will kind of wrap over it a little bit as well. And that would mean that this whole thing, this bump, is the adductors. Jesus. Plus a little bit of fat softening it. This area is prone to getting some fat. And before we get to the adductor magnus, which is kind of like right here, there is the gracilis, which I don't see at all, but I know it's there. It will run down, and it also merges in with this whole bundle. So I'm just going to fade it off. All the tendons combine. And then there's adductor magnus. I do see a little bit of it there. If I bring the photo back, let me bring out the original one. If you guys kind of squint and step back, you see how there's like a zigzag in here in the shadow pattern. It was like there's a zigzag like right there. That's on the top. The shadow pattern is going over this adductor magnus, and then it goes up and goes into the hamstring form. Okay, back up here. Pretend there's no fat down there in the glutes. I'm just thinking about the gluteus maximus. And then, do you guys see this little guy right there? That overlap? That's a nice hint for me, because I know that that would be where the hamstring pops out. I also know that this form in here would be the vastus lateralis. And I know that the gluteus maximus wraps around the hamstring and even wraps around the vastus lateralis a little bit. So that's the IT band over the vastus lateralis. Boom. Just going off of anything I could see, trying to look for clues. And then there's also some fat in these areas. So I'm gonna maybe see what would that look like if there was no fat. I know that there would probably be more of an indent right here. It would probably look more like this. Okay. If you guys need any clarification, please ask. I know this is a lot of stuff. I'll be happy to clarify or go into more detail. Okay. So kind of like working our way around the hamstrings right now and just identifying everything around it, and then there's nothing else to do except the hamstring. Oh, well, this little piece right here on the front, take a guess. Who knows what that is? Did anybody answer?
No.
Come on, guys.
There's also a slight delay. So.
There's a delay. Oh, yeah, that's true. I'll wait a few seconds. I'll give you guys the answer after you guess. Whoop. Whoops. Okay.
Quads.
True. That's a group. Is that the only guess?
Patella.
No. This giant bump right here? Come on. That's not the patella. That's a giant patella.
Everyone's guessing quads.
It is the quads. But it is one specific quad. It's the vastus medialis. It's the most medial one. The medialis. All right. Good guess, you guys.
People are going to be so happy when the basics course starts.
Oh, the basics course. That'll be a relief. Who's looking forward to the basics course? Okay. Right here is that top part of the calf, the gastrocnemius. It's this whole area that I was talking about on this side. You'll see two bumps. I'm Just gonna roughly lay it in here. Okay, I think that's enough around the hamstrings, and now we could just jump in here and figure this stuff out. Okay, so this tendinous bundle, this whole group right here, the tendon of the semi-T and the semi-M, the semitendinosus, semimembranosus, will jump out of that, and it actually just groups right in with the rest of them, right? Merges in. And so I could start by just thinking about the one underneath, semimembranosus, and that's just going to be this whole thing here. Because this tendon of the semitendinosus, again, remember, it cuts across the center, and it'll push the two sides of the semimembranosus outwards, kind of pinches at it. That's the fibers. And then, oops, actually it won't be that horizontal. It kind of becomes a little more vertical. And then a little bit of the ways up, it becomes the semitendinosus belly. Right around there. And this tendon travels quite a ways up. Sometimes you actually do see this bump right here that kind of gets squeezed outward as this tendon pushes down on it. Oh, what's so funny?
Someone just said, I'm noticing a larger shirt diversity within Proko's videos, which I'm very happy about.
Oh, really?
They're happy you're not in the black shirt.
What? Come on, you guys. You don't like the black shirt. I did that because I didn't want to worry about what I'm wearing. Like, if I wear the same thing every time, people aren't going to say, hey, he's wearing the same shirt. But if I wear, like, 5 shirts, you know, people are going to start noticing, like, yo, you only have, like, 5 shirts. Also, I didn't want to have to think about what to wear. I just had one shirt in my studio, and I would just put that on before filming. But yeah, when I do these live streams, I just wear whatever I'm wearing that day. Oh, I didn't mention. So do you guys see that little bump right here? There's like a bump, and then there's a straight. Well, this straight is a tendon. Droop. And then that's biceps femoris. Biceps femoris. Ta-da! Fibers going this way. I think we're pretty much done. Yeah. You guys. How sad we're done. Let me change that to brown. Back to brown. Where was I? Where's my mouse? There it is. I'm going to take that color overlay off. I don't know about you guys, but that seems to be more clear to me than the red. I probably shouldn't have switched to red. I don't know. But another thing I like to do when I'm doing these tracings is to color in the tendons white. It kind of makes it look a little nicer. Let me show you. So I'll go over it like this, and I'll just start going over the tendinous areas. make it a little bigger. So the whole IT band is a tendon. The greater trochanter is covered. All right, I mean, I guess I do tendons and bones. So this whole thing is a tendon. There's a tendon. This part of the calf is a tendon. Yeah. There you go. I didn't really do much of the calves on this side, but there would be a little tendinous area right through here as well. Sacrum. Sacrum's tendinous, but there is a there's the erector spinae muscle on top of it. So that's it. Oh, how could I forget? Achilles. Yay. All right, Q&A time.
Do you want to switch back there?
Oh yeah, let's maximize my face.
Okay, so the Alden Pro wants to know, how do you manage the balance between keeping a figure drawing anatomically correct and not stiffening up the gesture too much?
I am basing the shapes of the muscles off of the gesture that I established. And I'm not talking about the tracing. The tracing, I'm not worried about gesture at all. I'm just jumping right in. And I mean, I'm tracing on top. I'm just trying to put the muscles where they are. But in a regular drawing, I define the gesture of the pose, and then I make sure that any anatomical information I put on top either does nothing as far as stiffening, or it makes it even more dynamic. It intensifies the gesture, so it'll just go with it. Yeah, that I always design based on gesture, and I think I have several videos. Most of them were critique videos, where it's like anatomy versus gesture, or designing dynamic anatomy, or something like that. Do you remember what it was called? I have a few videos where I talk specifically about it, and I show, I think it was an arm, and how to design the muscles of the arm to flow nicely down the gesture of the arm. So go check that out. Actually, I think that's actually a really good lesson. A lot of people struggle with that. I noticed in a lot of my critiques, that's like one of the biggest things, is that people make muscles just kind of like straight. Everything's just, oh, there's a muscle here. It's kind of a tube, so I'm just going to draw the straight tube. But it's not usually like that. So good question, thank you. But there is a video on it.
Cool. Step check asks, you just did an exercise where you draw on top of reference to study anatomy. What
Yes.
are other techniques and ways to study anatomy, and how much do we schedule these in our studies?
How much? I mean, it's up to you. I mean, try doing these tracings. If you feel like it was very beneficial, keep doing them. Just do more of them. One thing, though, that, I mean, this is still a tracing. Like, you're not practicing your gesture or your forms. You're literally just trying to dissect the body and identify where things are. That's all that this is. And so you do have to balance out just drawing quick sketch. Like, and when I say quick sketch, I don't always mean like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. You could do like a 20-minute drawing where you're studying a leg, and you're just trying to identify all the big masses of the muscle groups in those 20 minutes. Like most of the assignments that I've been doing in the past several anatomy lessons have been quick sketch assignments, because I think those are super important, where you look at a photo and you don't trace it, but you try to design the forms to follow the gesture. And the reason I've been really heavy on that assignment is because I noticed a lot of people need to practice their gesture and simplifying their forms, and that they're not quite ready yet to do just purely anatomy tracings to just understand this detail stuff. So I've been focusing on a lot of that because that is really important. So quick sketch. What else is there? Invention. If you have the Skelly app, it's basically just bones. Pose that. So make a pose with the skeleton, and then draw that skeleton and then draw the muscles on top. So you're just inventing your own pose. You're inventing the muscles on top. That is actually another exercise that we've been doing in the anatomy course. And I think I've been providing the poses of Skelly, and you just do a tracing on top, but you're not really tracing surface. You're inventing by tracing. Does that make sense? You have the bones, and then you're drawing on top of it with muscles. I think that's probably the most difficult because you have nothing to base it off of. There's no surface anatomy like this photo to kind of give you clues to where things should go. You have to base it completely off of your anatomy knowledge, and that will expose your weaknesses extremely fast. You're like, I don't know what goes in this entire area. So you gotta get those books back out or watch the video on that area of the body.
Cool. Yeah. Another question is, I'm just starting to learn anatomy and I just can't remember proportions in 3D. I can draw front, side, and back proportionally, but on 3/4, I just flop. Any words of advice?
Proportions, you probably just don't understand the three-dimensional form of the muscles. You probably have studied the diagrams and you've memorized those, but you don't actually understand the three-dimensional forms. And that, I think actually doing tracings like this will help you because you can do tracings of 3/4 views or any other angle that you're struggling with, and that'll give you a little bit more mileage, a little more comfort with other angles. Because once you do 10 legs of kind of a 3/4 side back view, you'll start noticing patterns and you'll just kind of memorize that angle. Yeah, I think little tracings like this will help you.
Let's see. Someone wants to know, how would you go about becoming an art teacher such as yourself, or just being successful as an artist? But that's for our podcast probably.
For our podcast, that would be a good topic. But wait, repeat it again.
How would you go about becoming an art teacher such as yourself, or just being successful as an artist?
Oh, well, the second part is how to be successful as an artist. That's a huge question. I mean, also the fact that every artist kind of has their own path, and there's so many ways to be a successful artist. Like, you could say that I am not a successful artist because I don't make money selling my art. I make money teaching. So I'm a successful teacher, but am I really a successful artist? I don't know. You put me in that category, but no. I mean, I was selling my art, but I don't anymore. And there's like, you could be in the movie industry, you could be doing illustration, or you could be doing concepting, or designing products, or designing websites. Like, there's so many fields, and they all require so many different things. It's such a big question. I'd have to give you something very general, like practice and work hard. I don't think that's the answer you're looking for. But how do you go about being a good teacher? Well, I mean, first you got to learn enough that you understand what you're doing, and then you just jump in and start teaching. I jumped into teaching before I was ready for it, but it helped me quite a bit because I prepared for it very well. Before the semester started, I spent all my time just reading up on the topic I was going to teach. I was practicing demoing. I would time myself, like, all right, I'm going to have a 20-minute demo. I'm going to time it. And I did that like 10 times. I got more comfortable with that. I was practicing explaining. I was just at home by myself, just giving a demo, talking as if I was talking to students. And, yeah, practicing. And just that preparation, that's the pressure of having to do it made me practice it more. And so just jump in once you feel you're almost ready, and then you'll be ready. But I'm sure you could find someone that is worse than you. I mean, I don't know who you are. I don't know how good you are, but like, you could probably find someone who's worse than you that you can help. Even when I was only like 2 or 3 years into studying at the Watts Atelier, I was helping newer students, even though I wasn't like that good. I did help them with what I could understand, and just that practice of helping people that with things that you understand is just good practice to become a teacher. Eventually, people start trusting you, and you get comfortable with giving advice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's probably a good way to end it. People want to know when our next live stream is.
I don't know, you
And
guys.
if we're going to do it on Twitch.
On Twitch?
Yeah, everybody.
The reason I'm hesitating starting a Twitch is because then I feel like I'm going to have to make it regular. Right? Like it's going to have to be a thing that is always happening. I don't know, you guys. I'm like in so many different places. I feel like you guys would rather have me complete the anatomy course sooner than to do more live streams. So I'm going to focus on finishing lessons. But occasionally, I mean, if you guys really like this, like, let me know how I can make the live streams better, what you liked about it, and maybe that'll motivate me to do more of these. But I don't know when the next one's going to be. I'm sorry. Yeah, but yeah, it's been exactly 1 hour. So thank you guys for joining. Go join Premium. I gotta plug it, right? This is one of 4 tracing demos. The Premium course will have 3 more of these, and just for the hamstrings, and every other muscle has Premium demonstrations in it as well. That's at proko.com/anatomy. Okay, bye guys. How do I turn this thing off?